Good evening, everyone, wherever you're watching around the country or indeed the world, and welcome to round 3 of the Apex Rear Wing DRM Championship. We've gone from the bumps of Belle Isle to the bumps of Sebring, but that's about where the similarities end with tonight's circuit from last week. Last round, Goofball Antics found the Harald Ertl within to bring the BMW 320 home in first, while the opening round dominance of the Pink Pigs fell apart. Can they fight back on the long straights of this disused airfield and reclaim the championship lead? We're about to find out. My name's Alistair Schmidt, Stairs for short. In commentary with me tonight is Matt Dunlop, and Matty, ever since last week's epic, I've just been counting down the days till tonight.
Oh, it's been fantastic, hasn't it? Great to have your company again, everybody listening in at home. And now we are at Sebring International Raceway in Florida. So we're still in the United States after last round in Detroit, Belle Isle. Like you said, a very different circuit. While it is bumpy, this is a very British-style circuit in the sense that it is built on an old airfield. So there are parts of this track which are paved in concrete, lots of runoff, very flat track. But despite that, it is a very challenging piece of pavement stairs.
Certainly is, and a lot of the guys struggling during the practice session with the track cuts because the circuit is basically just delineated by a white line, and the game being quite harsh in some parts of the racetrack with the limits of the circuit.
Absolutely. I was finding the same thing when I was doing a few practice runs earlier. I tried in the Lancia, but that thing is such a slow car that you weren't able to get anywhere close to the edges of the track. So I jumped in a Ford Capri, and yeah, a much faster car, and I didn't realize how much I was missing out on. But like you said, you get very close to those edges of the track pretty easily, and you want to try and explore the entire width of the circuit as much as you can when you're trying to get the best lap times out, because it is such a wide track, isn't it?
Most certainly is, and that should play into the hands of the Porsche 935 turbos. But just on last week, again, we've got the points, of course, from last round, and Goofball Antics into the lead of the championship, Matty.
Absolutely right. Goofball Antics, having finished the first race in Brno in third position and winning the last race out of Detroit, Belle Isle, means he currently leads the championship standings ahead of Sam Smith in the first of the Pink Pig Porsches by a margin of 5 points. So it's relatively close to the top with 5 points in the difference between the first and a second place finish in this race. Madbird in the first of the Ford Capris is currently third in the championship with a fourth place at Brno and a second last time out. Great podium for him. I think it was his first podium that he's seen in quite some time in Apex Rear Wing. Birdo is fourth in the second of the Pink Pig Porsches, who won first time out of Brno, but crashed and finished ninth at Detroit, Belle Isle. Brenton Foley is fifth, sliding all over both these tracks that we've seen so far on the calendar. Roadhog in the Toyota Celica is joint fifth with him, with both having a fifth and sixth place finish, with Brenton Foley finishing lower last time out, which would place them, I'd say they're pretty even on these points. I'm not going to worry too much about
hard to differentiate with
at this stage.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Pablo follows in 7th ahead of Xeris in the other BMW 320 that Goofball Antics is also piloting. Xeris, of course, the champion of the last season of Apex Rear Wing in the Caterham, so you can take pretty much anything you throw at him, and he's normally pretty successful. He had 4th place last time out, but he did not finish the first race in Brno, and this is when we start getting to the DNFs. Resist is currently 9th after DNF last time out, with Nether in joint 9th as well on the same points. Tyrrell in 11th and D-Samaj in 12th, who was running at the front of the last race for so long until he crashed right at the end, putting him down to 11th. So he hasn't really fully finished a race in the points that he deserves this season so far. We've got Rody in 13th as well with Bang, with both of those guys yet to score any point Stairs.
Yeah, just 7 guys who finished both races, interestingly enough. That's a statistic coming to you from the first 2 rounds, so that's a lot of DNFs, and that's pretty much what we were expecting with these cars. And D-Samaj on the board, as you said, with 5 points from Belle Isle, but didn't actually see the checkered flag in that race. Got the points because he had completed 75% of the race distance. He's been pretty quick tonight in practice, 3rd fastest at the moment, with the Pig Pigs showing their pace in the later part of this practice session. The Porsches proving to be very, very quick around this track.
Yeah, that's right. The last 2 tracks caught a lot of guys out because there were some pretty tricky spots in some of those tracks. Turn 14, I think it was at Brno, and a few of the bends at Detroit, Belle Isle were sending a lot of guys unsuspectingly into the fence. But here at Sebring, I don't think we're going to see as much of that because, like I said earlier, there's a hell of a lot of runoff all the way around this place. So the walls are pretty far away, and you have to mess up big time to find himself in one of those walls. With Disused behind the wheel of a Porsche 935, I reckon he's on track to get at least a podium around this very power-focused circuit.
Yeah, and so power-focused that the BMW 320 may well need a little bit of help from the safety car to get to the end without making a pit stop. As we saw in the first two races, we did have safety cars, so that wasn't too much of an issue anyway. We reckon the Goofball Antics had to do a little bit of fuel saving in the early part, but then with the safety car, it was a fairly safe no stop from him in Belle Isle, but no such luck in Sebring without a bit of luck going his way when it comes to incident and that sort of thing. Just the corner we saw Disused coming out of at the last a few seconds ago was the turn 16 corner at Le Mans. That's the name of the corner, not the location of it, obviously, with being across the ditch. That was one part where I have seen him lose the back end once or twice during this practice session. That is one area where he could spin into a wall, which has happened. But as you say, a lot of tarmac runoff and grass runoff in other parts of the circuit. So you should be able to get away with a lot of incidents as Disused slides the car around turn 3.
Yeah, that whole complex between turns 13, the tower corner, all the way down to turn 16, which is the Le Mans bend, is very left, right, twisty, and it's hard to get the car planted and secure on the road because you're shifting weight so often from side to side. It's very difficult to keep the thing under control when you're trying to change direction so rapidly. That's where you see a lot of these guys getting caught out and spinning out, for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of those sort of sections around this track as well. A lot of them are a bit slower, but turn 11 into the turn 12 kink is going to be pretty exciting to watch. Perhaps no. I think I'm thinking of the Fangio section, which is turn 8, which is just after the hairpin. Getting the car planted and trying to get it through there at full throttle is possible, for sure. It's a little bit of a delicate dance, though. So if you see a couple of guys trying to duke it out side by side through that section, there could be some fireworks, Says.
Yeah, the change of direction you talk about that the mid-sector of Sebring is so well known for will be very much a handful, especially late on in the race when the tyre wear is much more pronounced and the fuel load gets lower. That will be a huge challenge in these cars, which, you know, shifting weight isn't exactly the specialty of a lot of these cars. The specialty is getting down the power on the straight and just stretching their legs with those big, massive turbo-powered engines.
Yeah, proper weight distribution isn't really these cars' strong points. Not necessarily with just the transfer from side to side as you're going through corners.
Speaking of transfer to side, Sam Smith is on his roof, so he's clouded a curb somewhere. That's similar to what we saw happen to Disused in Belle Isle last week, but obviously no wall to go over, so he has been able to rejoin the track without killing spectators or losing wheels. But that's interesting. We've actually seen that you can trip these cars up over the curbs.
There you go. Keep an eye out for that as well. Hopefully we won't see as much of it as we did in Detroit Belle Isle with such aggressive angles on those curbs. They're quite shallow around here, but obviously anything can go wrong. And those cars are acting like gymnasts at the last track, going end over end at some points that we saw in some of the photo reel highlights of Brenton Foley, I think it was, who was getting a bit of end-on-end action over the sides of the track there. But back on the point of weight distribution, Madbird was making the point during practice early when I was in their voice chat that once these cars are low on fuel, it's very hard to control them. Obviously, because these cars are designed around having 100% to 50% fuel load to achieve good weight balance. And once you drain the fuel tank past that point, the car gets very wobbly indeed. And Madbird was also saying that he's going to have a very hard time managing his tyres around this track. So pit stop strategy is going to throw up some very unexpected results there.
Very much so. That is another issue to take on board. It's not just fuel to worry about, it is tyres, and this is a racetrack with a lot of fast corners, lots of long radius corners, Big Bend of course being one that's quite hard on the front left, so too Sunset Bend, the final corner, and the one that Sam Smith is going through right now, which is the first corner if I'm not mistaken, which places a bit of a premium on the right hand side tyres. So these tyres are going to take a punishing during this race, and that could certainly take a toll. Sam Smith putting some energy through those tyres, but his teammate has pulled out an incredible lap time to end this practice session on a 54.9. So the first lap that we've seen dropping down into the 54s, and that really has laid down a statement ahead of this shootout to the other guys in the server.
Yeah, big margin at the front there. 0.46 seconds, and Sam Smith himself has a margin of just over half a second to Diesamage in third place. Another of the Porsches behind him, the gap goes all the way down to 1.3 seconds to Goofball Antics, who is still surprisingly running fourth in that BMW 320. So he's able to get as much performance out of that car as I think is humanly possible. So full credit to Goofball Antics, of course, the leader of the championship so far, and for good reason.
Yeah, and proving once again to be the faster of the two BMW 320s. Our defending champion Xeris, who was utterly dominant in the Caterham series in Season 7, winning all but one race, I believe, that is proving to be a much more difficult task in these DRM cars in this 320. Admittedly, the 320 doesn't really have the power to fight with the other cars over a single lap, but he certainly has been left wanting against Goofball Antics, but it's quite a close margin between those two in that practice session. I think it was about a tenth of a second in it between them.
That's exactly right. And another point to make about those BMW 320s is because they're such a light car, I think they are the lightest on the grid at the moment. Yes, 549 kilos makes them just narrow the lightest on the grid. Keep an eye for that one, the Celica of Roadhog and the Capris that are floating around the field, because they will be able to manage tyres a little bit better because there's not as much weight to be lugging around, and the brakes will be a little bit more stable as well. So those little differences between the cars, well, not really little differences between these cars, they're quite large differences between the various vehicles in the DRM Championship. They're going to be super apparent in this qualifying session as Bang leaves the pit lane to start his flying lap, having not posted a time during the practice session.
Yeah, he did a lot of laps, but didn't actually register a time. So whether that was because of track cuts or because he was perhaps trying to disguise his pace to those around him, we don't know. We know he loves this racetrack, and he did very, very well many, many seasons ago when Apex Rear Wing visited this circuit in a stock V8 championship. And I believe he came second or third in one of those races, so a favourite of his. Let's see whether that pays him any dividends in this qualifying session. Just the outlap for him, so last round he didn't get a particularly good outlap because he was held up by Rhodey in front of him, having a spin on his flying lap, which hampered Bang's warm-up of his tyres and all that sort of stuff. But he's got the ability to run this lap at his own pace.
That's right. Here's the first car out, having been the lowest ranked in the practice session, having not participated in the practice session. So he'll have completely clear all the way around to the start line of this, and all the way around the whole lap, as Rhodey, as you said, will be behind him. But yeah, those results that he's had at Sebring are very interesting to note, because he didn't show up, or didn't make an appearance rather, for the first race of this season of ARW, and he wasn't able to finish last time out. So could this be the first time we see points on the board for Bang? And the further question is, how many are we going to see from him? Because by the sounds of what you just mentioned, it sounds like he's going to be pretty far up there. Well,
his teammate Pablo has told us that he's electing not to qualify tonight, so that will mean that that's one position that Bang will be starting further up. And Pablo's been one who's been very good at keeping his nose out of trouble, finishing 7th in both of those races to collect the points. So Pablo, and if Bang can employ that same strategy, that looks pretty good for those two main force racing guys.
Well, it almost makes you wonder how important qualifying is in this series, because as we've seen, especially in the last two races, there's a lot. Obviously, it gets a little bit wobbly through turn 1 there. As we've seen, there's every chance, he's off in the grass, he's knocked it up on the entrance to the corner, he's losing a hell of a lot of time.
He held on to it though, that's important.
He certainly did, so he's going to try his darnest to complete this lap, and power to him for it. But as long as you stay out of trouble and don't crash your car, I'd say you have a pretty good chance of getting a high position.
Huge moment through Big Ben there for Bang as he comes down to the hairpin. And wow, he's really hanging on to this car by the skin of his teeth all over the curbs. We'll be trying not to get a track cut through this flat part of the track that goes left, right, left. And coming down to Tower Bend. Gets the nose in.
Running a pretty low fuel load in this car, because Madbird said the same thing about the Capri, as I mentioned earlier. Low fuel load means low control as you go through some of these corners. He gets very close to the edge of the track there, but the clock is still ticking on his lap, so he's doing pretty well. He's keeping it in at the moment, and that's going to be another source of a few unexpected results in qualifying, especially if people go across the track. Their lap time is going to be invalidated, and they'll be starting from near enough to the back of the grid.
Well, so far I haven't seen anything that's obvious as a track cut, but that is the problem with these track cuts, is they don't necessarily occur in obvious places. Some reports that only 2 wheels over the white line has been triggering it, and Sunset Bend, the corner that Pablo is coming up to, was one of the culprits. Final corner for Bang. The first 2 sectors, well, we haven't come up on my live timing yet. I believe my live timing app has just crashed, so we'll... Oh, huge moment out of Sunset Bend. He's just got to keep it going. Oh, that's absolutely destroyed the lap. It was quite a clean lap until then. He's got to floor it to the line and hope someone else spins. It's a 2:09. It's not going to be good enough.
Very unfortunate to see that at the end of what was a relatively tidy lap. He did make a few mistakes around the place as well. So, not a fantastic showing from Bang, unfortunately, but now Rody is taking to the track. Let's see how he fares in another one of the Ford Capris.
Got a track map up on screen for you there. A bit of about a 5-second delay on that one. It's coming through from Live Races. And if you want to see all the information that we get access to for live timing, arwleague.liveraces.com. It has that particular map. It has all of the sector times and various other information that's very useful to follow the race.
Absolutely. Rody's kept it pretty neat and tidy so far as he goes through Big Bend in the big braking zone towards the hairpin, which is very thankfully has the old hairpin, which points straight ahead as the runoff, because a few guys, especially myself included, during practice were getting crossed up there, missing their braking points, especially with cold tyres on, and shooting right off the end there. So he's 5/10 up at the moment, so he's looking pretty flashy. That's partly due to Bang's mistakes that he was making in that first sector. But Rody's keeping it nice and clean so far, isn't he, Stairs?
Yeah, a man on the improve, it has to be said. And he'll be happy to see green lights on his dashboard, if he had green lights on his dashboard. It's a car from the 1970s, so it probably doesn't have live deltas or anything like that. But of course, through the magic of sim racing in the 21st century, he will potentially have a delta on his HUD. And he's lost time through the middle sector, so he's now 1/10 of a second down, which means he's lost 6/10, and he's going to lose a further few tenths, even more than that, of having gone off there at, I believe that was turn 15. So one more corner to go for Rody. He was saying during the day, actually, that he was struggling with that sequence of corners, 14, 15, and 16, struggling with just sighting the racetrack, given it's a sea of asphalt and white lines delineating the track. So a bit of a problem there for Rody, but he should still be ahead of Bang if he can keep this last part of Sunset Bend clean. And getting the power down, very, very important out of there. Such a long corner and onto such a long straight. And he goes to the top with a 2:05.5, 3.5 seconds clear.
Very tricky corner, that last bend, because it almost acts like it's 3 corners, because you've got 3 apexes all the way around, and they're all at various radii, I think is the word I'm looking for. So to get the right line through that final bend is crucial, especially with such a long run into turn 1. As we see Tyrrell now taking as he crosses the line to start his flying lap, and another of the Ford Capris behind the wheel for Jeff Vader Racing. On the brakes for turn 1. He's a bit far away from that apex though.
Yeah, but carries a decent speed through the mid-corner, so we'll wait and see what it shows us on the timing screen. It certainly was a clean first corner, and clean is smooth, and smooth is fast, and all that sort of stuff. But during the day, I made that comment. Roadhog said, well, there's nothing smooth about this racetrack. It certainly is very, very bumpy. Pretty good through Big Bend. We saw Bang have a mammoth moment there through the Big Bend corner, down into the hairpin. And doesn't trouble the apex, but it shouldn't really cost you too much time, actually, as much as it would in other corners. Very close on the times.
Down 200ths of a second, so it's practically negligible at this point between Tyrrell and Rody, as he comes into what I believe is now turn 10. Hard braking zone into one of those 90-degree right-handers, which there are a lot of around this track, which makes things just a little bit easier. But then you get into some real tricky sections like through turn 11 and the king into turn 12. And this part of the track is where people start getting track limit violations throwing up. We haven't seen too many so far, which is good to see. but Tyrrell is still plugging along. He's going to cross the second sector split pretty soon now.
Going through
and he's down
Bishop.
0.4 of a second as he goes through Bishop. So he's in the run into turn 15 now. Still pretty neat and tidy. He can still make up a bit of time as there was an error here from Rhodey last time through. It was very uneasy through turn 16. So let's see what Tyrrell can do as he comes through the same corner. Hits the apex all the way out to the side. Very cleanly done.
I'm liking what we're seeing here. This is a fantastic lap from Tyrrell. It's like he's a different man from the tentative qualifying laps that we saw from him in Brno and Belle Isle. This has been a very, very measured lap. A lot faster than Rhodey and Bang, I should think. I will reserve judgment until the clock, which never lies, tells us its verdict, but looking pretty good so far.
He's up by 0.4 of a second, almost 0.5 of a second. So great margin there from Tyrrell, who currently sits in provisional pole after 3 cars have been out. Next up is Nether in the first of the Porsche 935s, which we're expected to do very well around here.
Yeah, these things look absolutely lightning quick down the straights, and the reason that they look lightning down the straights is because they are. They have an incredible amount of horsepower behind them, behind them, because they're not front-engine cars. That's a little bit messy there. Just lost the front a little bit. And so Nether just trying to keep it tidy through this turn 3, 4, 5 sequence and through Big Bend. Look how fast it is in a straight line. That is unbelievably quick.
Very rapid motor car. He takes a very early apex into the hairpin and he's shot right off onto the grass. There's a lot of time lost there, I'm afraid.
It's like the brakes didn't work. Like the pedal went to the floor. He was taking way too much speed into that corner. He's still a 10th up, believe it or not. Through the grass. That's definitely not where he gained his time back, I would have thought. That was a messy hairpin.
Yeah, I definitely believe he's still up, though, with the amount of power this car has, of course. 849 horsepower, which is streets ahead of most of the other cars in the field. So, with a lot of this track being on the straight and narrow as he runs wide there.
He's having huge issues with, I think, the brakes, the front, it's just locking up. So he's just not getting it stopped, taking way too much speed into the corner, and it's going to be frustrating to him. He's now 3 seconds down on the time set by Tyrrell, so now he's got some work to do here.
Gets the back end out almost through that bend there, and Madbird's going to have to be careful not to be impeded by Nether as he tries to go around for his warm-up lap, his out lap, if you will. So now Nether's on the back straight where these cars are really going to shine. He's going to be able to put the pedal down and get that all the way to the end at a rapid rate of knots. But all those mistakes that he made in the start and the finish of the second sector are going to cost him dearly.
I wonder if he's got a pedal issue, because it's like the fronts are just locking up as soon as he hits the brakes for the heavy braking zones, and he's actually pulling into the pit lane.
He's very nervous around that corner, and I think he's thrown away his lap there. So it's a real shame to see for Nether there, but he's got some technical issues, and hopefully he can get them resolved by the side of the race.
I wonder if he got a track cut, and that's why he didn't bother to complete the lap. Very interesting. Anyway, we move on to Madbird in another Ford Capri, and he was one who did a very good job last week in Belle Isle, just keeping his nose clean for a second place finish. He's got his work cut out to repeat that tonight with the Porsches being so dominant, but let's see what he can do in qualifying.
He's got about a 50% fuel load, as he was saying to me earlier, because he is the guy the most who has been feeling the pressures of having a low fuel load in these cars as he goes around Big Bend now. So he's not going to be as ideally fast as these Capris can be in a qualifying session, but it's comfortable for him, and that's what matters the most on a one-lap dash like this.
Absolutely right. Coming up through turns 8 and 9 right now. Another hard stop. This is where we saw Nether go off for the second time into this braking zone at turn 10, the tower bend. You can see the tower in the back of shot just in the previous shot, and coming up towards Bishop Corner now.
Well, he was up 2.4 seconds at the last split, so he's doing pretty well so far. He'll be coming up towards the second sector split very soon.
Beg your pardon, now we're coming up to Bishop Bend.
My apologies. As he comes through now at 3.7 seconds up. Fantastic splits from Madbird as he's coming down towards turn 15. Fantastic job so far from him. He's absolutely rapid.
Yeah, fantastic job so far. This could be the first sub 2-minute lap that we've seen. And given that the Porsches were down in the 155s and 54s even for Birdo, that'll be a time that he'll be happy to just be in the sub 2 minute bracket. Oh, that's wide. I wonder if he got a track cut for it. He went over the white line. This was what we've been talking about throughout the practice session. It's been an issue. If he was off throttle, he may well have just got away with it. Let's see as he comes across the line. It's 6.1 seconds up. He's in the 58s now. Great job from Madbird, but my goodness, his heart would have been in his mouth when he went across that white line.
Demolished the 2 minute marker there, so the benchmark has been well and truly set by Madbird as we now see Roadhog starting his flying lap in the fantastic sounding Toyota Celica.
Great livery too. He likes a tie-dye sort of effect, doesn't he?
He does. He's really got a real knack for design, Roadhog. Of course, painting his own liveries, a few liveries for some of the other guys in the field, and of course designing a track every now and then. He designed Place City Circuit last time out in the Caterhams in the last season. And this season, we can look forward to Holoham Raceway, the next of Roadhog's creations.
Can't wait for that. His tracks are always very entertaining to watch and to drive. And Hall's Gap is another one a couple of seasons ago that was raced in the Porsche Cup that we'll be doing a season review on eventually. That was a fantastic racetrack as well.
This lap time, though, is looking fantastic so far from Roadhog. I do say fantastic a lot. He's down 0.2 of a second, but considering the limitations of the Toyota Celica, that's pretty good.
It was a pretty good lap from Madbird that we're comparing it to, so that's not too bad at all from Roadhog.
One of the true tests of this track I've noticed was it gets very wobbly through what I believe is... No, is that Bishop? I think it may be Bishop. No, he's just on the run into 12, the tower corner there.
A lot of these corners, the sort of turn 11, 12, 13 area is quite easy to confuse with sort of turn 14, 15, 16.
Absolutely. He's already up 3.4 of a second, so great stuff. That second sector is where he really shone, despite a couple of those little scary moments when he got the back end out. But this track is filled with a lot of steady state corners as he gets the back end a little bit slippery through turn 16.
He's pushing... Speaking of pushing,
Brenton Foley getting the back tyres warmed up for his foul lap.
Snap.
Back to Roadhog now as he comes towards Sunset Bend. Turn 17, of course, a triple apexer. He's looking pretty good so far. It's hard to see the lines from this camera angle, but as we go through under the bridge, he's looking neat and tidy all the way out to the edge and a little bit more. But he's going to power down to the line now. I don't think he's going to be able to best Madbird. No, he finished second by a margin of 4.5 So Roadhog is provisionally second, and Madbird is still yet to be trumped.
So he lost that time in the final sector. Just too many big moments out of the Lamont corner onto the Allman Straight and also through Sunset Bend. As well, speaking of moments, let's focus now on this lap from Brenton Foley, which is often one of the highlights of these qualifying shootouts.
Well, Brenton Foley is just a moment on wheels, if you will. Every single corner he takes almost is sideways.
Should call him spectacular.
He's spectacular. Every time he gets behind the wheel of the car, maybe you should consider Kodak as his sponsor for next season.
That's a good idea.
Once his sponsorship deal with Stairs Noises runs up. But he's on the run down through the big bend into the hairpin now, and he's looking pretty good so far. That's unbelievable. We saw him back in qualifying at Belle Isle, and he's up 6.8 tenths. I don't know how he does it.
He's like one of those dogs at the beach that's so excited to see the water that its back legs nearly overtake its front legs as it's running to get to the water.
As you say that, he slides again through turn number 10, and now he goes through Collier, or Collier if you're French, I suppose.
Yeah.
Turn 12 kick is where a lot of guys have been getting tripped up with. Oh, he's got the two wheels up through turn 13 as he runs down towards Bishop now. Next sector split is coming up now. 8 tenths. Unbelievably quick from Brenton Foley.
Just got to keep it clean for these last few corners before he gets onto the Allman Straight.
That's a very big corner cut. No, he's thrown his lap away.
He's thrown it away. It's a corner cut. He's starting from the back. Unbelievable scenes here in Sebring as Brenton Foley fails to complete his qualifying lap, and all eyes turn to Resist as he makes his way down the Allman Straight on his out lap.
That's a shame. I was really looking forward to that lap time, but Resist is now going around the track, looking to see some good results from Resist. He's got the car that can produce those results with a wealth of horsepower behind it, but it is also the heaviest car in the grid. So, not sure how it's going to behave around this track. It's looking pretty bumpy as it goes through that final turn now. He charges towards the line. Let's see what Resist can do in this BMW M1 Pro car.
It's a shame that there aren't more of these BMW M1s in this field because it is an absolutely gorgeous car. I just love that sort of wedge shape, that old supercar shape. Looks fantastic.
It's brilliant. I always love the BMWs that look absolutely nothing like BMWs, except when you look at the front, see there's tiny little kidney grills. to just bring it home. I think it was the same with one of their Le Mans races from the late 1990s as well. And yeah, because this is a very drastic departure from the rest of the BMW design language, particularly look at the BMW 320, because I believe this one was designed by, as it gets pretty slippery at the exit of the hairpin, designed by the Lamborghini design department, as he's up just under...
It looks like it.
A thousandth under a tenth of a second, so he's down 0.99 at the moment, so he's up.
It reminds me of a Lamborghini, but yes, up by a tenth.
Very reminiscent of a Lamborghini Diablo, almost. Even though this was... I reckon the Lamborghini Diablo... Obviously, I can't really back this up. I haven't read into it very much, but I hazard a guess and say that Diablo is the spiritual successor, design-wise, of the BMW M1, following very similar languages with elements of the Countach. He's 3.6 tenths up as he goes through Bishop, so he's looking fantastic at the moment. Don't cut the corner resist. We want to see you bring this one across the line.
Yeah, this is where Foley came unstuck, so he's going through the Le Mans bend now onto the Allman Straight. Take a breath, and he'll go down to Sunset Bend. It's interesting, if you're a BMW stylist, you really don't have much to do in your day job, do you? So it's interesting when you see a departure from the norm. A bit like that with Porsche and their the 944 series that you actually commentate on in real life. Those cars look nothing like other Porsches, do they?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's even in terms of the drivetrain layout, it's one of the few front-engine rear-wheel drive Porsches that you will see. As this crosses the line, he's third. He's lost a lot of time in that final sector. He's down 0.6 of a second behind Madbird and Roadhog.
No
so
obvious.
I'm not sure what's happened there.
Yeah, no obvious mistakes from Resist. So Madbird must have been very, very quick in that final part of the lap. And it's not like the M1 is lacking power. Sure, it's heavy, but it should have had the power to go down the Allman Straight with some sort of pace. Maybe he's mucked up his gearing.
Possibly, and the weight of that car may be its downfall through that Sunset Bend, as you're trying to carry that weight around and you're trying to drag that inertia to the right-hand side as you power through that corner 180 degrees all the way around. So the heavier your car is, the slower you're going to go through that as a matter of physics. And this BMW 320 is going to be the opposite, as Xeris is currently up 0.2 of a second through the first sector, which is pretty good considering the amount of long straights in that part of the track.
Yeah, well, I expect him to lose time in the final sector. If anything is likely, he'll gain a few more tenths of a second through this middle sector, where he can allow that BMW 320 to just flow through these corners nice and quickly. It's one advantage here is that it's not too heavy, and so he can, and indeed he has improved on his first sector split there to his second sector split, up by nearly 0.9 of a second. A bit wide through there. He will be a bit annoyed with himself now, because he's going to feel the pain all the way down this straight, and this is where he's going to start bleeding time to the Capri.
He was phenomenally quick through those first two sectors, though, and it's given him a lot of leeway to play with. He's going to lose a lot of time, as you said. Normally the Porsches are floating around 290 kilometers an hour as they reach this point of the straight, so Xeris is nowhere near as quick as those Porsche 935s can be. But with the amount of time that he gained in the first half of this lap, I'd say he's going to be pretty close as he comes through the end of Sunset Bend now and heads towards the line. He's looking pretty good. He's up. He's won it. He hasn't won it. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But he's up at the moment. He's on provisional pole by 0.5 of a second. Great job, Xeris.
We now turn our attention to the second of the BMW 320s, to the championship leader, Goofball Antics, something of a qualifying specialist, I should say. He will be trying to topple Xeris with that lap time of a 58.3, but it was a good showing there from Xeris. It won't be enough to challenge the Porsche 935 turbos, but he's got himself at least halfway up the grid.
Yeah, he got a decent handful of pole positions last season in the Caterhams, so he was renowned, and still is renowned, of course, for being a one-lap specialist, but he can still perform very well in races, as we've seen so far this season, with 2 podiums, including a win last time out, meaning Goofball is currently leading the championship as he jumps on the brakes into the hairpin. Yeah,
he'll be wanting to not be remembered as a one-race specialist as well, having won that race in Belle Isle. I'm sure he'll want to add to that tally, and he's up by 3.5 tenths on the first sector, so that is a great start to the lap from Goofball Antics, who's just on an absolute tear right now. He's in such good form.
Great to see Goofball and Xeris piloting these BMW 320s well beyond what their capability should be in comparison to the rest of the field. with such a small amount of power relative to the rest of the cars as he bounces up on the curb on the exit of what I believe is the tower bend.
Yep.
We'll see his second split as he comes through now. 0.5 of a second. He's charging ahead of Xeris's time so far, and he's looking to be able to carry that momentum all the way to the line.
Hugs the apex nicely there through turn 15, coming up to the Le Mans bend at 16. This has just been a sublime lap from Goofball Antics so far, and I think Xeris would be the first to admit that. Xeris did a good lap, but Goofball Antics is on fire, as you can see on your screen right now, coming down the Allman Straight towards Sunset Bend. 1 corner to go, and if it isn't the trickiest one on the circuit, my name isn't Stairs.
He nailed one of the cones on the apex of Le Mans bend as he went through there, so hopefully he hasn't received a track violation strike for that one. He's still charging ahead, so I say still looking pretty good. It's a 1 minute 57.827, nice. And he's up by 0.4 of a second, just shy of half a second. Well done from Goofball.
So that's our first lap time in the 57s, and that's pretty good. If any of the Porsches make some blues, then he may finish ahead of them in this qualifying session. We now turn our attention to Disamaj, who was third fastest in the practice session. Let's see what he can do over 1 lap.
He looks pretty hot through that first bend. He hasn't really touched the apex on either side going through there. But that car is incredibly rapid, as we saw last time out.
Wheel on the grass, rear right tyre on the grass, and that was an incredible hold.
Big moment there from Disamaj. Hopefully he can keep it together for the rest of the lap. Oh, that's a big slide as well. I don't like the look of this one. He's not liking the way this Porsche's feeling going around this Sebring circuit. He's all right through the big bend, but on the brakes into the hairpin. Let's see how he handles it. I think it's going to be well kept together. He's a little bit on edge now, though, I think, Stairs.
He certainly is. That basically is the story of his season, as he's 0.5 down through the first sector split. Yet to finish a race, but he did get points on the board for Belle Isle for having completed enough laps. But he was on target for a podium in that race, and he'll have been bitterly disappointed that he didn't get it.
He certainly was. And today will be his first chance for redemption. As long as he can get a good start in this qualifying session to get a good lap time and place himself well up the grid. Because we've seen a little bit of action in the first few meters of these last 2 races, which is always unfortunate to see. But it's now becoming an unavoidable part of these races. There's a little bit of a track cut there, I wonder, as he goes through what I think is the kink towards turn 15.
Yep.
So hopefully his lap time still counts, but he's down almost a second at the moment, so not looking great so far for Disamaj.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Goofball Antics lap, whereas Goofball was gaining time on the provisional pole sitter. Disamaj is losing time to the provisional pole sitter, but here's where he can gain some of it back. Down the Allman Straight, Sunset Bend, he's got to be clean through there, try not to get a track cut. Car's trying to get away from him. He doesn't want to go over that line, and he's managed to avoid that. Now power down the straight.
Yeah, wow. The throttle a few times. He's made up a lot of time on the Allman Straight and is now second by a margin of 1.8 of a second, but he was a little bit uneasy through that final bend. Hopefully we can see the Pink Pig Porsches, which are now out on track, get these lap times perfect, because they've been mostly flawless in terms of 1 lap pace all season so far. They've come unstuck a couple of times in regards to crashes, of course, during the race. But these are 2 of the most rapid cars on the grid.
Been a messy start to the lap for Sam Smith. Just a point on the lap we just saw from Disamaj. That's got to make everyone else's hearts sink there, with Goofball Antics setting... That was a perfect lap for mine. It didn't look like he made a single mistake through that entire lap. And he was up by 0.9 to the second split on Disamaj, but only ended up 0.2 ahead through the final... through the entire lap, because of the Porsche's power down the straights.
And you look at what these Porsches can do when you get a clean lap out of them. Clean first sector, no slippage at all from the tyres. He kept it all pointing in the same direction, and at the first split, he's up 0.6 of a second. That's a phenomenal margin.
So, Sam Smith, he's basically racing the lap time that hasn't been set yet, and that of his teammate. 1.4 seconds almost to the second sector split. He's doubled that advantage. Or
that looks
a couple
like
of
a
wheels.
track cut almost.
Yeah, a couple of wheels over the curb. You would have thought he would have exited out if it was a track cut. We'll find out when he comes across to the line, but he's trying to beat his teammate Berto, who, from what he said to us last week, what Sam said to us last week, has been doing all the work with the setups and all that sort of stuff. But Sam Smith will still want to beat him on the racetrack, and he's got 1 more corner to go. Let's see what the time is for Sam Smith.
Coming out of Sunset at Bend now, charging down to the line. He's in first by 2.8 seconds, so he didn't get the track cut at all, and he's posted a huge margin to Goofball Antics in second. So now we wait and see what Birdo can do. He comes around the last turn now, finishing his out lap. He's about to cross the line now to start his flying lap. Let's see what he can do.
Sorry, I had to sneeze there. Birdo is pretty clean through the first corner so far, and he is definitely the man to beat, having set a 54 in the practice session, but that was very, very close to a 54 for Sam Smith, and if I'm not mistaken, his fastest lap of the night so far.
Yeah, fantastic lap there from Sam Smith. He's normally a pretty slippery driver, as we saw a lot during the Caterham season last time out, but very neat and tidy for Sam Smith's standards, and it really paid off for him with such a fantastic lap time there. But Birdo is going to be challenging that for sure as he rounds the hairpin and comes towards the first sector split pretty soon now. Let's see what he can do so far. He's down a tenth and a half.
Tasty. Tasty from a spectator point of view, because that gives us a battle and may well swing the Black Schuppen-Rennen battle in the direction of Sam Smith. Well, having said that, even though Birdo did seem to be the quicker of the two drivers in Belle Isle...
Oh, he's very wide.
He's wide! He's wide! He's going to be behind Goofball Antics at this rate if he doesn't get back to the racetrack, pushing too hard. Locked the front right, I believe, and straight on. So, although Sam Smith is ahead in the points, Birdo has seemed to be the faster of the two in the last few rounds, but just hasn't got the points on the board to reflect that. And now he's going to be starting behind Sam Smith, who I can safely say will be the pole sitter after what we've just seen, as Birdo lights up the rears coming out of Le Mans onto the Oldman Straight.
Yeah, I think even Birdo knows he's not going to get pole position in this lap. He rounds the Sunset Bend now, albeit very slowly, and I think he's even going to wrap his lap up very early.
He might have got a track cut.
I think he got a track cut, I'd say.
Or not. No, he's just taking a tight line, one we haven't seen through Sunset.
Very tight line. He finishes in fifth with a lap time 3.4 seconds behind Sam Smith. But it is Sam Smith who finishes this session in pole position next to Goofball Antics, who will line up alongside him on the front row of the grid.
Tell you one thing I wasn't expecting from that qualifying session, Matty, was Porsche BMW 320, Porsche BMW 320. We got two 320s, arguably, well, without argument, the slowest cars on the grid in second and fourth place.
Just shows you the caliber of Goofball Antics and Xeris in how well they're able to pilot these cars around a track like this. But they're able to get so close to the start of the field in qualifying with such fast one-lap sprints. Hopefully they'll be able to see that pace out and translate it to good results in the race. But of course, pit strategy is going to be a very important and strange unknown, I think. I'm not really sure how pit strategy is going to play out. Those BMW 320s are going to benefit a little bit from being the lighter cars and not drinking as much fuel as, say, the Porsche 935s. Ooh. But that pace advantage, especially over the straights...
Someone's already lost a front splitter coming out of the pit lane.
It looked like Foley, I think, got the back tyres lit up a little bit too much, so he's cruising around somewhere, unless he's gone back to the garage. Oh, there he is. He's coming out of the pit lane now. Sans front splitter.
Well, a mixed-up grid calls for an interesting race.
Absolutely. We've got a yellow flag at the exit of turn one as Brody has rotated already. But yes, it's going to be a very exciting race, I'd say. Obviously, before the first corner is where we're going to see some unpredictable moments, as I mentioned earlier, as I touched on, with unfortunate incidents happening at the start line. So as long as everyone gets a good launch and through turn one cleanly, it should be a very strange race, I would say. But it is a wide track, so I think we're going to be pretty safe from incidents for the most part. Well,
only if the trend changes from what we've seen in the first two races. Let's have a think about our predictions. We'll get those to you after the break. We're going to take that break now, and on the other side, we'll come back and bring you all the action from the race. Welcome back to Sebring for round 3 of the Apex Rear Wing DRM Championship. We are coming to you from Sebring tonight. We've just had qualifying for the race in which Sam Smith claimed pole position, breaking the stranglehold of his teammate Berto, who claimed the first 2 pole positions of the championship. But it's still a Pink Pig, a Black Schuppenrennen Porsche 935 Turbo on pole.
Yeah, as I expected, it is one of the Pink Pig Porsches who is starting this race from first on the grid. But as I was saying earlier with the first lap, I know I talk about first lap incidents a lot, but keeping your nose clean on the start line is super important, as you may have seen, although you probably wouldn't have seen it during the break, but they got their first practice start out of the way, and both of those Porsches, both of the Pink Pig Porsches of Berto and Sam Smith, both crashed on the start line, or on the start-finish straight, with Sam Smith finding his way onto his roof before it even hit 100 k's an hour, I think. So they're going to have to be careful.
Yeah, he likes it on his roof, Sam Smith, didn't we? Saw it in the practice session. He hit that curb too hard and rolled onto his side, onto his roof.
He's just making sure his roll cage is nice and sturdy.
Well, it certainly seems to be so, having gone through 2 of them at the moment. Just distracted now because I'm looking at fantastic battling going on in this practice start between BMW 320s and Ford Capris, with Madbird and Goofball Antics going side by side through Sunset Bend before they immediately slow it all up for a second practice start as Tyrrell blows through the outside of them. So the practice starts are a good idea for these guys. We're seeing them do a second one for tonight, which they normally do multiple practice starts. It was the race in Brno, I believe, where Madbird jackknifed off the start straight into the side of Xeris, which was an inauspicious start to the championship.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Cost Xeris what would have been a potentially very high race win, or not, sorry, a race win, not a race finish. Not being able to finish that race Xeris, I think due to a second incident that he had at a later stage. My memory is a little bit hazy, I'm afraid.
It was our turn 14, I believe it was, the penultimate corner. Sorry, 13. No, it was 14, beg your pardon. I'm looking at the Brno track map now, which caught a number of drivers out in Brno. We had a few of those in Belle Isle, turn 4 and turn 7, where a few drivers went off, which makes me wonder what's tonight's Apex Rear Wing hotspot for people to go off. Will there be incident down at the hairpin, for example? Will it be Big Bend, people spearing off into the grass? Tower Bend, maybe, or Le Mans? Or will it be the infamous Sunset Bend?
I'd say in terms of guys going off the track, the hotspots will probably be the hairpin and Sunset Bend, as well, of course, the braking line is pretty hard to get right, especially under the pressure of the first lap into the hairpin. And Sunset Bend, of course, because it's such a tricky corner. But the main thing that these drivers are going to have to be wary of is track limit violations, of course.
Yeah, with penalties being such a harsh punishment in these cars, and also the fact that the cars don't have a pit limiter. It's very, very difficult to go through the pit lane without speeding. You've got to be an absolute eagle eye on that speedometer, and it may well be that you leave a little bit of time on the table making sure that you don't get a pit lane speeding violation to add on top of the track cut penalty.
Yeah, it's a very cruel punishment for what is nominally a minor infraction. It's something as we got a little bit of an incident.
Madbird and Foley.
A few of the Ford Capris getting a little bit messy there. But it's a solution that MotoGP's come up with in, I think this season is the first season they've done it, is they've got a penalty loop, which is where a wider line is painted onto the exit runoff of one of the corners, which is designed to take about a second or a second and a half out of your lap time if you go through there at full pelt. So
it's a good idea.
Yeah, if you violate track limits too many times, you'll get a penalty loop infraction served upon you that you have to take at some point in the next few laps, and it means you can still stay in touch with whatever battle you're in, albeit a second and a half behind, which can be very detrimental sometimes. But for something that can be as minimal as a track limit violation, which may only earn you a tenth of a second, it's a lot nicer than receiving a pit lane drive-through penalty, which can cost you anywhere around 25 seconds, depending on the track.
Well, they do get 3 of them before the penalty is triggered, so there is at least some warning there, but Some of the some of them have been coming in parts of the track where they weren't really expecting them, and they didn't feel like they had all four wheels off the track. But coming back to that point on the MotoGP one, because a ride-through penalty is so much harsher than a drive-through penalty in Formula One because of the shorter races, and they don't make pit stops in MotoGP unless it rains. That is a good solution to what was really a very, very harsh penalty, and not as messy as 5-second penalties like you see in Formula One.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't really see a lot of MotoGP riders trying to go off the track to gain advantage a massive amount because of the danger of going flat out over curbs like that. You do see it every now and then, but not too often. So when the drivers accidentally run slightly afoul of the white lines painted on the ground, the penalty loop is a great solution, almost like a joker lap that you see in rallycross.
It's a good analogy, actually. I'm just reminded of the solution. I don't know if you've been keeping up with your Formula E of late, but they have the new rule for this season where they go off the racing line to get a bit more power, and often it means that they have to lose positions in order to take what they call the attack mode, but it gives them about 10% more power for the next 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's always great to watch when the drivers decide to take their attack mode boost, or Mario Kart mode as it's sometimes referred to, as it's the graphics on TV really reflect the real boost patterns that you see on the Mario Kart
and the sound effects.
Yes, and the sound effects as well. I really love their sound effects in the Formula E graphics department. But yeah, it really spices things up quite a bit. It's one of my favorite innovations in the series I've seen so far. I'm not super plus on the fan boost aspect of things, so
they could drop that.
Mode, yeah, the attack mode is really great to sort of encourage drivers to go off the racing line and withdraw themselves from a battle for the sake of getting a little bit more pace to go around. And it's great to see that the technological advances in the cars mean that they're able to do that.
Yeah, no more changing cars midway through the race, and I guess they felt like they needed another element to make it unique, other than the fact that, of course, all of the cars are electric powered. But the attack mode, which everyone kind of dismissed it when they first heard of it as being a bit of a gimmick, and I guess it still is a gimmick, certainly added more of a strategical element to the racing than many expected, and it was very, very successful.
Almost makes you wonder if the FIA uses Formula E as a test bed for a lot of these rule changes, for potentially considering them for Formula One even.
Quite possibly. I don't know if we'll ever see attack mode in Formula One, but
no.
I will reserve my judgment. I may well need to eat my words one day, but that's by the by, because we've reached the end of the warm-up session. We've got a timer that's full up with 55 minutes on it, and we've got a grid more or less ready to go on their warm-up lap. And surprise, surprise, we've got a line of Porsches on the right-hand side, but no Porsches, I believe, at all on the left-hand side of your screen there. We've got BMW, Capri, BMW, Capri. Oh, there's a Porsche in nether behind Resist immediately, and then Brett and Foley starting a long way back. So a mixed-up grid. Matty, do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, it's a very odd way for those Porsches to be lining up if you want to take that literal term. Porsche sitting first, third, and fifth in the early stages of the grid so far. But we're starting with Sam Smith, who sits on pole position after that fantastic lap in which he just pipped Birdo through the first two stages of that lap before Birdo made a mistake and dropped right off the back. Goofball Antics in the underpowered BMW 320 sits second after producing a faultless tour around this circuit. D-Smudge sits third in the second of the Porsche 935s ahead of Xeris, starting from fourth position. A great result from him in qualifying. Hopefully we can see him getting up and mixing it up with a few of those guys at the front as well. Birdo in the second of the Lex Schuppen and Renan cars starts from fifth in the grid, ahead of Madbird, the first of the Ford Capris, in sixth position for Nikon Kankol Artec Racing. Roadhog is seventh in the Toyota Celica, ahead of Resist in the BMW M1 Pro car. Tyrrell in another one of the Ford Capris for Jeff Bader Racing starts from ninth, ahead of Rody for Blair Witch Rennsport in 10th in another one of those Ford Capris. And the field is rounded out by Bang in 11th, Nether in 12th. Both of those guys making errors through qualifying, particularly with Nether with the track cut. And Pablo, who I do not believe set a time in qualifying, will be bringing up the rear of the grid. No, Brenton Foley, of course, will be starting from 14th. Sorry, he was a bit far off the back of the field. I didn't see him from my camera angle. So 14 cars lining up on the grid today. Good showing.
Yeah, and 3 of those cars not setting a time in qualifying, with Pablo electing not to, and 2 track cuts, we believe, from Nether and also from Brenton Foley. So I guess it's time for predictions. My prediction, at least for the early part of the race, is that we're going to see the great reshuffling, as some of these cars didn't set the pace that we know they're capable of, certainly with Birdo nowhere near the front, and with Brenton Foley not registering a lap time. I think we'll see in the early part of this race a lot of those Porsches move their way towards the front. The BMWs might drop back a bit, but then as the race progresses, we should see the strategy begin to equalise it a little bit.
I think you might be right. We're going to be on for a very close race in the dying stages, but if you're looking for a race win prediction, I think Sam Smith is going to win it from pole.
Oh, big call. Big call.
He was very smooth through qualifying. If he can maintain that smoothness throughout the race, he'll be able to manage his tyres and his fuel very well, and he'll be a lot quicker over the 55 minutes, plus 1 lap as a result. What do you think, Stairs?
Oh, it's tempting to go for the same, but I just think Birdo showed some unbelievable pace in practice, and that leads me to think he's been quietly honing his setup and wasn't too worried actually about qualifying, just trying to beat his teammate. I reckon he'll have the race pace.
They're all getting their tyres warmed up on that Almond Straight before they go around the Sunset Bend for the last out lap before the race will get underway. They're just making their way onto the grid now, slowly but surely getting there, and they're all trying to make sure that they don't stuff up the start, essentially. We've seen it a couple of times in the last few races. Looks like Disused is very close to the back of the Pink Pig Porsche. I'm not sure how staggered these grid spots are, but Disused almost looks to be out of his box there.
Well, his game will tell him if he is too far forward, but it remains to be seen. We'll see if we do get the lights. Not a lot of space on this grid in front, but certainly a lot from side to side. Bit of revving going on. The lights are on. We're about to go racing for the 3rd time in DRM, and it was Zirus this time. Zirus went absolutely nowhere, and Disused got up alongside one of the Pink Pigs. A great start from Goofball Antics, who's going to get the whole shot through into turn 1. Birdo with a fantastic start, comes up off for 4th place. Sam Smith, the big loser, down to 3rd, side by side down through the opening sequence of corners, and Disused slots in behind. Disused in 4th place, loses a spot. Resist up 2 spots. Great start from him. Tyrrell's up 2 spots. Wow, that was fantastic. Roadhog, one of the losers. Madbird also with a tardy getaway.
Phenomenal start there from Birdo. He's already up to 2nd position, having made up 3 spots, and he's looking to be swarming all over the back of Goofball already, but he gets passed around the outside by Sam Smith.
Yeah, Sam Smith comes back. So I don't know what happened there. We just caught the end of that as Sam Smith went around the outside of Birdo, but the 2 Pink Pigs are line astern, and this is looking good for my prediction now as Birdo goes up the inside. Does he get it stopped? Sam Smith with the switchback as they go through the hairpin and through the following sequence of corners. It's a Pink Pig battle that's allowing Goofball Antics to get away in this opening stage of the race.
Absolutely. These guys are scrapping with each other very early on. And I'm looking at Zirus now, who's already over the back of Disused. He's going to lose that margin as they make their way down these last few stretches of the track. But you can expect to see Resist to make up another spot, I would say. So he's currently sitting in 6th, having made up 2 spots already. A few track cuts there on the first lap. To be expected, I guess. And you see a lot of these guys taking quite a wide line on the run into the Lamont Bend as they try to get as much drive down this Almond Straight as they possibly can.
Well, we're coming down the Almond Straight now, and Birdo reels in Goofball Antics like he's a minnow on the end of the line, and he's going to deposit him in the bucket very quickly indeed, I think. Probably only needs one more straight to get by that BMW 320, although you see how much the BMW 320 extends its advantage through the mid-corner, and then the Porsches clamber it all back on the straight. So Goofball Antics Championship leader leads across the line for the first time, and the Porsches will want to work together if they want to get by at this stage.
Well, given how close they are to the back of Goofball at the moment, the margin is negligible because it's just a matter of finding track position where they can comfortably sit and be rapid without running into the back of him the whole way around. I'd say they're going to get past, like you said, as soon as they can find another straight section to do it. Keep your eyes on this. He's already making a run around the inside, so Birdo's already got him. Sam Smith is currently sitting back. No! Goofball is going to run it. He's going to run it wide.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's going to lose the position to Sam Smith as well, who gets up on the curb and nearly loses the car. This has given Birdo an almighty gap up at the front. So Birdo takes the lead. Sam Smith comes into second, and Disamaj now blows past Birdo. Up into third. No, he's gone way too deep. What was he doing there? Could not get the thing stopped. He was up into second. Now he's back into fourth. Under pressure for fifth with Xeris all up his chuff.
He really fancied his chances for a second position there. He'd just passed Goofball for third, and he thought he had enough pace to get past Sam Smith into second, but he just went way too hot into that corner. Now sits fourth again. One place down from where he started, but he's going to be charging back up there pretty soon.
That was great driving from Sam Smith to have the wherewithal to notice the out-of-control Disamaj and manage to cut back underneath him. Now, Disamaj has got himself back up underneath the rear wing of Goofball Antics. He's going to blast past him down the straight, well past him by the time he gets to Sunset Bend. But up in the front of the race, we've had a change of position for the lead as Sam Smith goes through to take first place away from Birdo. So these two pink pigs are fighting each other. No team orders there. Let's catch a replay there of what happened. Sam Smith got a nice run down the Almond Straight, had the inside line through Sunset Bend, and takes the lead of the race.
Great stuff from Sam Smith there. Made it look very, very easy. And he currently sits ahead still as they're going to turn 3. Although Birdo is all over the back of him. They've got very different lines around this circuit, Birdo and Sam Smith. Birdo runs pretty wide there through turn 5, I think it is, in the run down to the Big Bend. So Sam Smith looking pretty comfortable at the front so far. And Disamaj is back up at the third where he started this race. And he's looking to narrow that gap to the Pink Pig Porsches very soon. With Goofball sitting in fourth, dropping off quite quickly.
Well, this is back to somewhere of the something like the kind of pecking order that we saw during practice. It was the two pink pigs out front, followed by Disamaj in third place. Goofball Antics ahead of Xeris. Those two 320s lapping at a reasonably similar pace, both in the 59s, low 59s for them. The Resist, up 2 spots from where he started, is holding on to 6th place and putting a little bit of pressure on the 320s. Madbird still down 1 spot from where he started, so he was as far down as 3 spots from where he started at one stage, but he's now coming under some pressure from Brenton Foley starting from the back of the grid, those two Ford Capris. Roadhog's down 2 spots from where he started. Heather's made a bit of progress, up in 10th there. Rhodey is in 11th place, Tyrrell in 12th, Pablo in 13th, and Bang in 14th, having lost 3 spots from where he started.
So I'd say Bang spun out somewhere around the track, unfortunately for him, as he's dropped back all the way to the rear of the field. I did see a little bit of dicey action between those back markers, if you will, around the lap at some points, as Brody has a big slide through what I think is turn number 15.
Ooh, speaking of big slides, we've got the two red and white Ford Capris sliding their way through Sunset Bend now, and the Stairs Noises branded Brenton Foley car right up underneath the Nikon Artec branded Madbird car, battling each other through the first corner. And oh my goodness,
big moment from Brenton Foley there.
Yeah, he's trying to go around the outside, but he lost the rear end and he had to get out of the throttle.
Don't know how he held on to that one. He did very well, and he's all over the back of Madbird still to this moment. So keep your eyes on Brenton Foley. He's going to get his way pretty close to the front, and he's going to do it quite spectacularly. As Sam Smith goes very wide of the hairpin. He's all the way off the track, and Birdo's back in the lead.
So let's catch a replay of what happened to Sam Smith, who was our race leader momentarily. Now he has lost the race lead again. This has been a lot of changes of position for the lead already this race. So, lost the back end. The back end, the rears looked locked up. That's what it looked like. Got up onto the grass, so well, that's the sort of mistakes that we saw a lot of in Belle Isle, but they cost a lot more time in Belle Isle. So he's right behind his teammate Birdo, which just shows how far ahead of him he was when he made that mistake, because he's lost a considerable amount of time, but he's still in touching distance of the lead.
Yeah, it also speaks of how well Sam Smith is able to chase when he's got a car in front of him that he can follow.
Foley's had an issue somewhere.
I'm going to have to go check to see how Foley's looking. Yes, he's dropped right back to 9th position now. So he's had a spin, I'd say, somewhere, which is very unfortunate for him. Just looking at Rhodey, he's got a little bit of damage as well. As we go back to the front, Birdo is still hanging on by 0.3 of a second as they go through Sunset Bend, but it's side by side on the exit, and they're drag racing down towards turn 1. Sam Smith is currently sitting in front, and Birdo tucks behind, looking to get a draft on the run into turn 1, and he's having a look. He's not going to do anything just yet. They're both getting pretty close to the apex, though. They could be moving to turn 3, but it is currently Sam Smith who is back in the lead.
Wow, so Sam is quick. Sam is very quick around this racetrack. While that was happening, Resist made his way past Madbird. We just caught a glimpse of that as it was happening. We also saw a replay of what happened to Brenton Foley. I believe it was down into the hairpin. Just from memory, it was an overtaking maneuver on Madbird, but he lost the rear end. Ambition outweighed talent, I suppose you could say, in that particular maneuver, and Roadhog having to take avoiding action to avoid hitting Brenton Foley, but no harm done. He got past, and Brenton Foley lost 10 seconds in that ordeal.
Just as you were saying that, Brenton Foley's rotated his car again. He hasn't lost any more spots, but he's lost a huge chunk of time to Roadhog, who is now just under 12 seconds behind. So Foley is not faring too well around this track. He's getting the back end out all over the place. So not good to see for Brenton Foley, who had some fantastic results last season in the Caterhams, of course. Very
interesting to see the differing ways that these cars suit or don't suit cars compared to the Caterhams. Brenton Foley was on the podium almost every single race in the Caterhams, but just struggling to come to grips with these cars a little bit. He can drive them flamboyantly, but I think he always drives at 10 tenths, and when these cars require 9 tenths, he doesn't seem to be able to scale it back to just bring it home sometimes, and where others, like Madbird, for example, may well do that and they collect the points. Disused is probably another one of those who puts it in the wall more often than he doesn't, and he had some good results in the Caterhams that so far have yet to come to him in the Porsches, but tonight, well, he may well be on for his first podium of the championship. Time will tell. The leaders are side by side once more as Birdo goes down the inside of turn 1 and retakes the lead from Sam Smith.
Sam Smith had a little bit of a moment into turn 15, I think it was, allowing Birdo to get ahead, but Sam Smith was right on the back of him all along. They took very different lines through Sunset Bend, and they were able to stay side by side almost all the way down the front straight. And it is currently Birdo who leads, but this battle is far from over.
Absolutely. I just wonder if they're just playing with each other right now. No one seems to be able to get the upper hand in this battle. If you look at the lap times, there is only about 1.5 tenths separating them in terms of their best lap time. Beg your pardon, in terms of their last lap time. The best lap time is Sam Smith with a 54.8, and that is second faster than Birdo, unbelievably, as Birdo resists an attack from Sam Smith to stay ahead out of the hairpin. Remarkable stuff. Yeah, it looked like Sam Smith is going to have a big lunge through that part of the track.
Oh,
Disused is in the wall. Disused is in the wall. Just caught that end of that. Resist, meanwhile, has got past Xerus. We didn't see that. We're just going to catch a replay. Disused is going to hate me for this, but caught the replay of him having a off. And what happened there? Was it too early on the throttle, or did he unsettle the car? He unsettled the car, looks like through turn 8. And now under significant pressure from Goofball Antics.
Yeah, he made his way into the infield of the track. Sorry to jump back to the lead again, but Sam Smith has just ducked in front of Birdo as they run into turn 17, Sunset Bend. So he was able to get the slipstream and power past Birdo on the run into that corner, but they are going to be side by side almost. No, Birdo tucks behind, and they cross the line in Sam Smith first. Birdo just behind him by 0.3 tenths, although it's a negligible margin, as we've been saying earlier. So Sam Smith is back in the lead.
Can't wait to see the race position graph of this particular race. It'll be Sam Smith, Birdo, Sam Smith, Birdo, Sam Smith, Birdo. It's swapping around so much right now.
It'll be like a crochet, won't it? How they're intertwining almost the entirety of the race.
Knit one, pearl one. Knit one, pearl one. So Sam Smith has pulled away a little bit through Big Bend. He's got a 0.8 of a second advantage at the moment.
Yeah, he's definitely not knitting behind the wheel. He's driving, and he's driving very quickly.
Well, Xerus is now, having got passed by Resist, coming under pressure from Madbird in the Ford Capri. He's only half a second behind him right now.
Yeah, I was expecting that BMW M1 of Resist to be able to be pretty quick around this track. with that V12 engine producing almost 800 horsepower. Very close there between Madbird and Xerus through the hairpin. But Resist is currently 5th, 3 spots up from where he started. And he may even catch Goofball pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a good showing from him. I'm reluctant to speak too much about him because, well, we've given him the curse so much over the last season and a half there. Xerus gets it all swapped up on the curb, but holds it together very, very well as they go down to the tower bend. And Madbird's trying his best to stick with the BMW 320 through the mid-sector. If he can be anywhere near close enough to him out of the Le Mans bend, he might be able to drag past him down the Allman straight.
Yeah, I'd say he's got a pretty good chance of doing that down that straight with the power difference between these cars. Not a huge amount. They're both pretty low on power, relatively speaking. Only a difference of about 35 horsepower between the Capri and the BMW 320. But that hole punched in the air by the Batmobile, as it's sometimes lovingly referred, could be all the difference for Madbird. Currently sitting in 7th position. He's not going to be able to do it at the end of this straight, but keep your eyes on turn 1.
Yeah, well, the mid-sector strength of Xerus and that BMW 320 has protected him from the attack down the Allman straight, but Madbird is very much closer to him as they go across the line down the start-finish straight. Is he going to have a lunge down into turn 1? He thinks better of that one. Ooh, really just? No, he's rotated. He's rotated. Was there contact there? I think he may well have just got caught out. And that is going to be incredibly frustrating for Madbird as he loses the position to Roadhog. Let's catch a replay on board with Madbird. See if he actually contacted the 320. There was contact. So just, yeah, trying to carry a bit more speed than Xerus was. And how frustrating.
Not a place you want to be spinning out either on the inside of a blind corner like that. Thankfully, no one hit him. There's a pretty fair margin back to Roadhog, who saw the yellow flags and got out of the way. But, oh, very unlucky for Madbird there.
Right, while that was happening, Sam Smith has eked out a lead of 2 seconds over Berto. So your prediction looking pretty good so far. And he set the fastest lap of the race actually on his last lap, that 54.8. And so far, he's just taking about a tenth or so out of Berto per sector. So he's basically, he and the car are just very much in tune around this racetrack. No sign of a safety car so far. At this point in both the opening races, we had seen a safety car by this point. So, I mean, I'd say that touching wood, that I don't curse that. But so far, Sam Smith stretching out the lead that he needs. But a long way to go in this race, still best part of 40 minutes. Desamage is now 10 seconds behind the leader, but he's got a pretty comfortable margin behind. After having made that off, he's stretched out to a 4-second advantage over Goofball Antics, the championship leader.
Yeah, everyone's starting to settle into very nice rhythms now. A lot of space in between these cars, so once the pit stops start, which I imagine they'll start very soon for some of these vehicles, that's when we're going to start seeing some real dicey action. There's yellow flag down at the hairpin. I think there's been an incident between Bang and Rody as Bang is going very slow across the grass. No safety car yet. They're all back on the track and running again. But I think that's probably the closest battle we have on track at the moment is for 13th and 14th. Everyone's looking pretty spacey right now.
Oh, that was a... Well, Rody somewhere lost the front of his car and Bang's gone off in sympathy down at the hairpin by the looks of it. So that's just the end of that replay we're catching with Bang and Rody. They didn't hit each other, but they both went off at the same part of the circuit.
I think Rody may have lost some of that front bodywork earlier in the race, actually. He's had a couple of incidents where he's come a cropper and hit the fence. He's still going, though, in 13th position. And, of course, if he finishes in 13th or potentially higher, he will score points, given that we are using the MotoGP point system, which pays all the way down to 15th position. And with 14 cars on the field, if no one DNS this race, everyone will take home some points. Very
much so, and that is the incentive to continue racing. But Rody does look like he has a bit of damage. There's smoke coming off that car every time he turns a corner or hits the brakes, so I think he'll be wanting to get into the pits and have some running repairs done.
I think so. He's got a wheel locking there as he's trying to break into the Sunset Bend, so he may hold off until his scheduled pit stop is going around again. So same sort of issues that he was facing in the last couple of races where he found himself unfortunately hitting the fence a number of times. But he's plugging away, and it's great to see him having a good go of it.
So Sam Smith has set the fastest sectors to 1 and 2, and there he goes. He set the fastest lap of the race by some margin. Previous best was a 54.8 from Sam Smith. He's gone and obliterated that lap time by 7/10 of a second. He's not leaving anything on the table there. I would, at this point, just manage the gap, but he's stretched that lead out to 3 seconds already. And that was not Berto making a mistake. That was just Sam Smith absolutely flying. Oh no, what's happened there? Sam Smith,
traffic.
An issue with the lap traffic. I looked away from the screen, I came back, and the... oh my goodness, the gap I was talking about that was 3 seconds is now 2/10 of a second. So... oh my goodness, just catching the replay now, and it was...
there was no contact. It looked like whoever that was, Bang, rotated all on his own there, but it was right in the middle of the track, and Sam Smith had nowhere to go, had to take evasive action and go on the grass on the outside of that corner, and the net result of that is that Berto is right on the back of Sam Smith once again.
Unbelievably bad luck for Sam Smith there. Has he taken a chunk of grip out of those tyres now? Does Berto's strategy of conserving in the early part of the race, will that pay some dividends later on now that the gap is basically naught? Or does Sam Smith have the pace to pull away again?
Time can only tell. There's not really much lap traffic for a little while yet. Although, in saying that, I think they're coming up on Rhodey in the next couple of corners, and I'm saying they'll be catching him in the next 2 laps or so. Hopefully there's no such issues there with that traffic as they come up. They're running down the Ullman Straight now. Berto's going to try and get a draft off the back of Sam Smith at a distance of about 1.1 seconds, which at a speed of around 270 kilometers an hour, that's quite some margin. So you're not able to get too much of a slipstream there, but Sam Smith is... oh, he almost looks to be sliding through turn 17 there. It's a strange angle. You can't really see what's happening with those cars from that camera angle. But as they go across the start-finish line to start lap number 11, it is Sam Smith who leads ahead of Berto by a margin of just 1 second.
5 seconds he lost in that moment. So I think it even slowed Berto up because Bang was still recovering when he came on the scene. And now, speaking of coming on the scene, we've got Rhodey now. The lap traffic now. No, you want to keep to the inside as they go through Big Bend. Oh, he dives out of the way. That was just about good enough. I don't think Sam lost too much time out of there. He's gaining time on Berto at the moment. It was 0.5 of a second at one point, 0.2 of a second at one point. Now it's back out to about a second. In fact, I think... oh, Berto's gone straight... not Berto, Rhodey's gone straight on there. I'm not sure why that happened.
It didn't even look like he broke. I think he just went straight into the fence.
I think he hit the grass and lost all of his braking ability. I'm just catching the replay now to see if that's the case. The car is obviously damaged. But, I see. He went to the inside and nearly took out Berto, and that was avoiding action he was taking right there. Did very well in the end not to take out Berto, which would have been a very unpopular move.
Yeah, Bang went off behind him as well, and a little bit of a sympathy maneuver, I think. And they were both having a polite game of you go first, no, you go first on the way out of that bend. So they're both still in the race at the moment, both still rolling around, but we've even got 5th and 6th coming on the back of those cars now. So they're dropping back quite some time. I think Roadhog has had a spin at the hairpin as well. Yes, he has. He's rotated and hit the fence rear first, I believe.
Madbird and Foley are close again on the racetrack, having both made spins earlier in the race, and now they're battling over 6th and 7th place.
They are. Brenton Foley's on the charge again. He's able to... looks like he's mounted the curb quite considerably through that corner. But he's back up to 7th position, 7 spots up from where he started, of course, given that he couldn't set a proper time through qualifying. And he's sliding all over the place, trying to get up the inside of Madbird.
Oh, no, that's not an overtaking point. He tried to make it one, though, and he's got it all sorts of out of shape coming through turn number 15, and out of the Le Mans corner, they're all sorts of out of shape. And down the Allman Straight, I don't think he's anywhere near close enough to make a move down into Sunset Bend. It would be Curtains. Get it? Sunset? Curtains? Oh, I suppose you got it.
I see what you've done there.
Very
surely
good.
The wise thing to do would have been for him to wait until the end of one of these straights. Not necessarily Sunset Bend because it's a tough overtaking maneuver, but into turn 1. He is all over the back of him still, but it is a gap of 0.6 of a second, and he could have been touching his bumper if he hadn't tried to make a pass through there. So it is Madbird who will still hold on to that 6th position, but Brenton Foley is giving it his all.
Sam Smith is back out to about a 2-second advantage, so it looks like easy come, easy go when it comes to closing the gap to the leader for Berto. He gained a bit through an incident with a back marker, and he lost a bit through an incident with a back marker.
Looks like Resist has made his way past Xeris as well. So Resist is now into 4th position in that BMW M1. So great showing from him. A little bit wobbly for the hairpin turn, and Xeris is all over the back of him. So he's still going to be duking it out for a little bit longer.
Yeah, we're just still on that battle there between Madbird and Brenton Foley there. Brenton Foley looked like he was ready to shape up for a move into the hairpin. Very, very close through Big Bend, but he just thought better of it, and he's remained behind for the time being.
Yeah, we've got some very close battles happening right now, of course, between Madbird and Brenton Foley. As Brenton Foley has a look. Oh, we've got Rody. He's off the track. I think he's just getting out of the way.
Stay off the track. Very good.
Does well. Stays out of that battle. So Madbird still stays in 6th position, and it is Resist and Xeris who are having a grand old ding-dong for 4th at the moment.
Hard to know where to look.
Leader of that battle. No, it really is, isn't it?
It's like an impatient pizza man. Ding-dong, ding-dong, ding-dong.
He's made a mistake through turn 16, so Xeris is alongside, and even up to 4th, they're dragging down the back straight. The BMW is going to win this battle with so much more power on tap.
But can the BMW 320 drive around the outside, or indeed the inside of the Sunset Bend with the BMW M1 just not having the
position with a much tighter line? He's going to try and cut him across on the inside, and he's going to drag him to the line. Oh, it's going to be close, but Resist is going to hold on. No, it's side by side.
I think Resist was just ever so slightly ahead as they went across the line. I'm just sort of thinking about that if it ever happens across the last lap of the race.
Yeah, I think so. That would be very hairy if that happened in the last lap. But they are very close, and it's incredible how dicey these guys are in such different cars at this stage of the race. 12 laps in. It's great to watch. I think Resist has just been getting a little bit slippery through some of these corners, and Xeris has been there to pick up the pieces every step of the way.
We've seen some great battles between these two. I'm thinking back to the race that these guys had in Place City Circuit.
Absolutely. It was a very new track to everyone
Pit stops for Roadhog, Brenton Foley, and Madbird, lap 13.
So the battle between Madbird and Brenton Foley has gone on a temporary hiatus as both those drivers pit on the same lap. Let's see who wins out of the lane. It's going to be Madbird who gets a even blast straight out. He's across the line and he's out of there already. So Madbird has made up a huge amount of time on Foley, and it looks like Roadhog's got past him as well.
Oh, he spun it on the pit exit though. He almost turned across the double white lines that you're not supposed to cross. And a very bad place to spin because there's cars coming through turn 1, and he rejoins just behind Brenton Foley after that huge mistake.
Well, every advantage that Madbird had in the pits has been completely negated by that mistake he's made on the exit, which is very unfortunate for him. But Brenton Foley is now up into 9th, so he's ahead of Madbird and currently leading that battle. So well done there for Brenton Foley, although I'm not sure if he made a mistake during the pit stop or on the way into the pits because he was quite some time back, wasn't he?
Or if he had to repair any damage or anything like that.
Well, I'm not sure if he hit the wall earlier in the race, but his car looked to be pretty straight at the very least. As we go back to Xeris on Resist now, these guys are still neck and neck. They've gone around another lap, and they're still on the exact same margin almost.
Yeah, we're just marginally further ahead this time for Resist as Xeris looks up the inside of turn 1. This is a fantastic battle that we're seeing ensue. And this is by far Resist's best race of the season, with incidents in the early part of both races in this DRM championship. Looking pretty good for him so far, 4th place at the moment, but he's having to fight for it as it stands. And he is the highest placed car at the moment that is not a Porsche 935 Turbo.
Yeah, it is a very similar car to those 935s in the sense of the amount of power and the weight that those cars give off. I'd say it is not as quick, of course, because the power-to-weight ratio is slightly lower in the BMW M1. But, yeah, he's performing as he should be on such a power track as Sebring. Charging up very well. He's coming up on some lap traffic now, Resist is. But, yes, he's really using that car's full potential around this track, and it's great to see. Yeah,
so Rhodey's the car up ahead. So Rhodey's lapping significantly slower at the moment. Last lap around a 2-minute 41. His best at 2-minute 4. So with the damage that he's carrying, it's a bit of a surprise that he hasn't come into the pits already and got that repaired.
Pretty tight battle between Nether, Roadhog, and Brenton Foley for 7th through 9th positions at the moment as they go through turn 3. All in completely different cars. You've got Nether in the Porsche 935 ahead of Roadhog in the Celica, who has Brenton Foley in the Ford Capri right on his tail.
Yeah, and this is the battle of those guys who have made their pit stops, but Nether hasn't made his pit stop, so he's just elected to get out of the throttle and let them by because he doesn't want to be cleaned up by, well,
oh, there's contact there.
Was that contact, or did Roadhog lose it on his own? There you go.
I'm not sure. It looked to be contact. Don't quote me on that, though, but he got very slippery. No, he did it all on his own, I think. He just got the back end out and did it all on his own, so he's very lucky to hold it together, and he's still in 7th position.
Yeah, just catching the replay now. Yeah, it appeared to be going around before Foley got to him. Have to catch that from an onboard maybe at a later date. But yeah, Roadhog, well, Foley didn't take advantage of it. He let out of the throttle, so maybe there was contact because he didn't drive past Roadhog. So that's very, very interesting. Madbert's still about 3 seconds behind, so he hasn't caught a great deal up with that incident between those two. Berto's now 9 seconds behind the leader. Now, he's had a slow lap the last time around at 2:02, which suggests to me that he's made a mistake somewhere because he hasn't made his pit stop.
Speaking of pit stops, we just had Disused who's made his stop on cold tyres. He's run very wide on the exit of pits there. And Resist is spending quite some time in the lane. He must have some damage he needs to repair. He's coming out now, but he's lost a drastic amount of time to Disused. So he was probably hoping to claw back some margin on that Porsche 935. But Resist has crossed the double white lines there as well. So I'm not sure if there'll be a penalty imposed for that.
Yeah, they didn't discuss penalties for that. They basically had a gentleman's agreement to say you go across to the end of where the double lines end. We have policed that in the past in other series, but it wouldn't be fair to penalise him given that it hasn't been expressed explicitly to everyone to do that. But perhaps...
Back to the pit lane, and Berto is making his first stop now.
Well, that is a crucial moment in this race. Berto coming out of the pits... Sorry, coming into his pit box right now. Sam Smith has elected to go out, and he's got traffic crucially on this lap, but he's holding a 10-second advantage over the... second place Berto going into the pit stop phase. It's a good time to pit for Berto, man. Get out of the traffic. That is certainly a good strategy. I would be coming in right now if I was Sam Smith. Xeris goes through into second place. He's still on the racetrack having not pit. And what's his advantage to Resist? That'll be something very interesting to take note of, having had a long pit stop.
Absolutely. Berto's rotated on the exit of pits. Berto has spun.
Another one.
Oh, he's going to lose some more time. Unbelievable. Everyone's getting caught up on the exit of this pit lane. It is a tricky exit because you're trying to get on the throttle and accelerate while you're turning hard left, getting back onto the track. Very strange pit re-entry. And it's caught a few of these guys out, including Berto. So very interesting to see there. Goofball is now up to third again, although Goofball has not pitted. Likewise with Xeris, although those two have quite a gap between them. So unfortunate for Berto there, but that's looking to be this track's dirty little secret, if you will. The thing that's catching everyone out when they least expect it.
Our Apex rear wing hotspot. If I was Sam Smith, I would be coming in right now because this traffic is ridiculous.
I think you can hear because that's exactly what he's doing.
There you go. Sam Smith coming into the pit lane. Does he get it down to the required pit lane speed limit? If your name is Sam Smith, you would certainly hope so. Second place man, Xeris, is coming through the... geez, he's a long way behind, isn't he? Coming through turns 15 and 16 as we speak. And he may well assume the lead, assuming he doesn't come into the pits. Berto is all the way back at somewhere in the middle sector. So a long way between himself and his teammate. Oh, huge moment there on the curbs for Berto, and takes a trip through the grass. Gracious me, that was a moment. He's trying to catch up the time that he lost with that spin on the pit exit.
Yeah, he got very wobbly through that part of the track. He did very well to keep it together and not spin it, but he's lost even more time there, so I'd say he's a little bit rattled.
Sam Smith is a long time in the pits. There he goes. He's got it going. Goofball Antics is coming down the straight now. He's probably going to come out ahead of Goofball Antics, assuming that he doesn't spin it on the pit exit. It's going to be mighty, mighty close. Xeris is about 15 seconds ahead, but of course he hasn't made his pit stop. Sam Smith comes back out in second. The crucial gap to his teammate Berto, the only other car in the top four who's made his pit stop, is About 7 seconds. So Sam Smith has lost time through the pit stop phase despite not despite not spinning.
Yeah, very interesting there. So he may have had some damage at some stage he needed to repair, or he was taking a little bit more fuel. But he also, I noticed on the exit of pit lane, I reckon he's cottoned on to what's happening to the rest of these drivers as they're spinning on that exit of the pit lane. Not sure how much they're talking in the group chat, but he did take it very easy through that rejoin, throttled off and went all the way around the outside of the runoff, joining the track at the last possible moment. He wouldn't have lost very much time from that, so I'm not sure where he's lost his time.
Yeah, I just wonder if he had a little bit of damage to repair that he's forgotten to switch off. Maybe it was damage that wasn't affecting his speed because he was certainly driving pretty quickly. But the time it took to repair that damage potentially was what accounts for what it appears to be a loss of time through the pit stop phase, because Berto had a few moments on his outlap and certainly one on the rejoin to the racetrack where he would have lost at least 5 seconds spinning it around. So that's very curious.
Well, the margin between the Pink Pigs now in second and fourth position is about 8 seconds rather, that Sam Smith has on Berto. So he's definitely streaking away after this. I think Berto is still a little bit rattled.
Yeah, well, Sam Smith, of course, still has the advantage because he has a lead of 7 seconds. It's just that it's a remarkable amount of time that Berto's eaten out of it when we thought that gap would have extended.
Yes, this is very true. So it's proven to be very interesting. We'll have to see how much Berto is able to catch back onto the back of Sam Smith and how quickly he can do it as they start lap number 18 with about just over 20 minutes to go in this race.
Still a long time before this race is cleansed when it comes to the BMW 320s, which we believe will have to make a pit stop if there is no safety car, and we've seen no sign of that happening so far, with 25 minutes elapsed, or 35 minutes elapsed and 20 minutes remaining in the race. So I think that Xerus and Goofball Antics right now are just hanging on for grim dear life, because if that safety car were to occur, then it would get them out of jail in terms of not having to pit again, but of course it would condense the field and then all of the Porsches would blast by them, essentially.
I'd say either way it's pretty negligible. Xerus currently has a gap of just under 13 seconds to Sam Smith, and with 20 minutes to go, that's going to be quite easy for Sam Smith to catch onto the back of. It was pretty close in qualifying, but in comparing qualifying laps, you'd have to have Xerus post-qualifying laps every lap for the rest of this race. And if there's no safety car, that's going to be very difficult to manage towards the end of the race. And if there is a safety car, of course, the gap is negated completely.
Yeah, well, I'd say at a conservative estimate, Sam Smith would catch up to Xerus in around 4 laps, based on the sort of pace that they've shown so far in the race. The best lap time from Sam Smith has been a 54.1. Xerus' best lap was a 58 flat. Last time around, a 59 flat. So good, best part of 4 or 5 seconds slower than the Porsche 935 Turbo of Sam Smith.
Just another local yellow flag I've caught. I've got a habit of saying yokel. I'm trying to say local yellow at the
Cletus,
same time.
the slack-jawed yellow flag.
We were discussing old mate Cletus in the pre-race chat earlier. But it was Rody who rotated at one point throughout the track, and he's really struggling to get the car on track. But he's pressing on regardless, which is always good to see.
Goofball Antics is going to come under some pressure from one of the Pink Pigs in a few short moments, with Berto within a second now, within 2 seconds. The gap 1.5, and the difference across the line between them, 56.1 was the lap time set by Berto on the previous lap, compared to a 58 flat for Goofball Antics. That means that he will be right on the back of him by the end of this lap, I should think. But I still think it's a very strong drive from Goofball Antics so far. Even though he's behind his BMW 320 compatriot, he's still in 4th place, and assuming that the pit stops don't drop him too far behind, he's still on target for a decent haul of points, which will go some way towards softening the blow in the championship that he currently leads.
Well, he is currently 3rd, but I suppose he will probably be 4th by the end of this lap, given how close that Pink Pig Porsche is now. It's a gap of just 0.4 of a second, and he's almost looking to make a pass through Bishop, which is
But
not
I
really
would
want to try
do
and
well
pass
to
someone.
wait here, I think. There's really going to be no challenge between the two cars down the Elman Straight.
I would not imagine so. But towards, yes, Sunset Bend at the end of the Allman Straight, I'd say there's going to be some changes made. Birdo is already getting very close to the back of that that BMW 320. And he's going to have a look now, I would say, and he will get the pass done with relative ease. So that is Birdo back in the third position. And Goofball now sits in fourth, but it's a very strong fourth that we've seen so far from today. They're still side by side through turn 17, mind you. That car is just able to corner a hell of a lot better through turn 17 than the Porsche 935 is, but now they're back on the straight.
No
Birdo
contest.
is making a run for it.
Yeah, that 320 holds its own through the corners, but it can't hold a candle to the BMW 935 Turbo down the straight. So now the gap between Sam Smith and Birdo is around about 10 seconds, which is essentially what it was before the pit stops. The confusing thing for us is, why did Sam Smith have such a long pit stop? Doesn't really matter now because there's 15 seconds remaining and he is in the box seat to win this race. You may ask, why, Stairs, is he in the box seat to win this race if the number next to his name says 2 and Xeris has the number 1 alongside his name? Well, that's because he's catching Xeris at something like 4 or 5 seconds a lap, and we still think Xeris needs to make a pit stop. So as that drops under 5 seconds, Sam Smith reels Xeris in at quite an abrupt rate of knots, and without any safety cars, it's hard to see how Birdo can catch up to Sam Smith again.
We've got another battle for 6th position at the moment. Resistors dropped back a little bit. I'm not sure if he's made an error or if it's just a result of a pit stop that he may have made at some stage. Oh, that's right. He did have a very long pit stop earlier in the race. I do remember now. But he's currently having a good battle for 7th with Brenton Foley in the 43. It's knowing any battle with Brenton Foley. He's either on the back of him or 3 seconds behind, and that can change at a moment's notice given how Brenton Foley drives. They're going through the Big Bend now, and they were very close in the later stages of the last lap, so it's been very interesting stuff to see those two battling.
Got Bang currently in the pits, and also Nether.
Xeris is pitting now.
Xeris is pitting now, so that's a big moment in the race because he's going to lose the lead to Sam Smith. You can see driving through into the lead of the race in the foreground. So the BMW 320 making it all but 15 minutes into this race, and with no safety cars in sight, probably a good idea to get some fresh tyres on and see how much progress you can make, as we've got, I believe that's Bang making his exit of the pit lane behind Berto, who now reclaims 2nd place. Berto has continued around, not making his pit stop.
There's a quick stop for Xeris. He just got the tyres and went. He was sitting on the rev limit for the entire stop. He was very keen to get out of there again. He's sitting in 4th now as a result of Goofball not having yet pitted. So Xeris has taken a very rapid pit stop, which is always great to see. But now the margin at the front, with Sam Smith resuming his lead of the race, is 14 seconds ahead of Berto, who's currently going through the hairpin.
This is very, very interesting because that was a quick stop for Xeris, and he's 10 seconds ahead of Disamaj, who, according to their best lap times, is only lapping around about a second and a half faster than Xeris. He may well hang on to this position, Xeris, I mean, if Disamaj isn't catching up at as an abrupter rate of knots as the two Pink Pigs were.
There's every chance Disamaj may have made an error somewhere around the track that we didn't notice. He's very slow through the hairpin. I think his tyres are starting to fall off a little bit as well. Although Disamaj did pit earlier, so I'm not sure why he may have just had a...
Maybe he didn't change tyres.
Potentially. Maybe just had a bit of a slide. Speaking of slide, Berto's run wide through turn 15.
Yeah, that gap's gone up to 13, nearly 14 seconds now to Sam Smith, who's just absolutely dominating this race. And I'll have to doff my cap to you, Matty. So far, I know I don't want to pay out on any bets so far. We didn't make any, of course, but it looks like your prediction is coming to fruition.
Well, if there's any time when the commentators guys are going to strike, now would be the time. But
we're
Sam
doing
Smith,
our best, aren't we?
We really are. There's no wood around here for me to touch, I'm afraid. So I was going to have to hope and pray that Sam Smith can hold on and fulfill my prediction. But it's looking pretty good, isn't it? He's been very smooth this whole race. He's got a margin of 15 seconds to Berto, which is always a good sign. Goofball is even getting close to the back of Berto now. It's a margin of 2.4 seconds. So
interesting.
Is Berto just... Berto seems very slow at the moment.
Well, I wonder if that was the reason why he had a shorter pit stop. Forgot to change his tyres.
that could very well be it. He may be on very, very old rubber. I've been watching him, and he's been falling off the track pretty rapidly. We've got a drive-through penalty coming through for Rhodey, I'd say, as a result of track cut violations. But because he's been ducking out of the way of the other cars as a result of being a lap car, it's not going to cause too much of a dent in where he's sitting at the moment, which is 14th, plumb last. But it is par for the course. If you're lap traffic, you sort of have to get off the track every now and then to let him through. But back to Birdo, yeah, he's been sort of neat so far, but when you've got tyres that are as worn as his, your only options are either understeer off the track or take a corner very, very slowly. And the net result of that is that he's not too far ahead of Goofball Antics. Goofball's dropped back to about 4 seconds behind him now. So Birdo's able to make that ground back up again on straights as they come down towards Bishop now. But yeah, we'll have to see if Birdo can maintain this pace to the rest of the to the end of the race. Obviously, he can't pit again if he has forgotten to change his tyres, because the amount of time lost in that stop would be curtains for his race.
Well, Birdo has lost 4 seconds to Sam Smith on the previous lap. That's out to 15 seconds, the advantage now. Sam Smith showing no sign of abating. He's still lapping within a second and a half of his best during this race. I would say it's manage the gap time now. If you're Sam Smith, there's 10 minutes more or less remaining in this race. You're leading by 15 seconds. It's great times as a race driver. That's exactly what you want, and Sam Smith is well on his way. And if it finishes as it would now, Sam Smith would take over the lead of the championship from Goofball Antics. Goofball, even though we think he needs to pit right now, even if he finished where he is now in third place, he would drop to second in the championship on 57 points, with Sam Smith surpassing him on 61. And Sam Smith, with a very strong championship so far, having occupied every position on the podium apart from first, looks like he's set to complete that quinella tonight.
We've got about 5 or 6 laps left to go in this race so far. So he's just got to hold on for those 5 or 6 laps and maintain at least some gap at the front. He obviously doesn't need 20 seconds under his belt, which he has at the moment. He can afford to lose a little bit of time for the sake of preserving his car around this Sebring International Circuit. But it goes without saying that it's Sam Smith's race to lose right now.
Didn't see where it happened, but Disamaj caught and passed Xerus, so I'm not sure if that's because Xerus made an error or because Disamaj had an incredible pace, but I feel like it's probably Xerus made an error, because his gap on Disamaj was something like 10 seconds, so a bit of a surprise, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd say Xerus has made an error somewhere, which is not something you see very often at all from Xerus. He's normally a flawless driver, as we saw last season, of course. As we've been touching on in the Caterhams, he was near enough to perfect throughout that season, so a rare error, it seems, from Xerus as Disamaj heads back onto the 4th position. So it's going to be a very strong result at this rate for the Porsche 935s, currently sitting 1st, 2nd, and 4th, only split by Goofball, who is 32 seconds ahead of Disamaj.
Disamaj in 4th. We're seeing Goofball Antics go around again. Has he saved enough fuel to not make a pit stop? There's 9 minutes remaining. If he is going to make a stop, it's going to be a splash and dash. And he was behind Xerus before the pit stops, if my memory is serving me correctly. If he does make a pit stop, will he emerge ahead of Xerus or not? That is the question. There's so many unanswered ones. And again, they're surrounding Goofball Antics tonight.
Well, at the moment, the delta time from Goofball back to Xerus is about 1 minute and 5 seconds, so I can't imagine he'll lose that much time in the pit stop if he does pit. I imagine he will need to pit, because it was Xerus who pitted, 5-10 minutes ago, so surely Goofball isn't able to get that much more life out of these tyres and this petrol that Xerus is, because they're very similar cars, very similar driving styles between those two. I'd say Goofball is just trying to see how far he can go on a no-stop strategy, but I imagine he will need to come in for at least a splash of petrol towards the end.
It's funny because Goofball Antics is well known amongst the guys in Apex Rear Wing as being the guy who runs out of fuel, but in this series he seems to be the guy who can go the furthest on his fuel.
Well, maybe that is where the commentator's curse is going to strike. Maybe he will run out of fuel. Who knows?
Please no. Well, what does Sam Smith have left? 7 minutes and 50 seconds and change. So what is that in lap times? The lap times that they're setting as it stands, minute 54.5. Man, he's only 4/10 off his ultimate speed, Sam Smith. He's still lapping as though he's a man without children. And Berto, meanwhile, is completely buttoned off. The gap down... Well, the gap is 20 seconds. We've got someone in the pits. It's Rhodey going for his drive-through penalty. Had he not served it already, or is that an extra pit stop?
No, it is a drive-through penalty he's taking.
Interesting. Anyway, 21 seconds the gap between Sam Smith and his teammate Berto. Comes across the line. So 7 minutes, basically, as he came across the line. So we've still got a fair few chunk of laps left.
Driving like a man without children. That's phenomenal. You have to write that down somewhere. Oh, he's off it too. He's off at the hairpin. Sam Smith's off at the hairpin. He's taken to the old runoff.
I was looking at
Oh,
Berto.
my goodness. Give me a heart attack, Sam. He's got a bit of time under his sleeve, of course. He's still 24 seconds up on Berto. So, oh, man.
Well, his non-existent children are not watching that on TV having a heart attack. So, it was the exact same moment he had early on in the race. This is the sort of thing we saw continually in Belle Isle, which would have been heavy contact with the wall. But in the end, he probably only had a net loss of two seconds? Yeah, 2 seconds to the first sector. And in fact, Berto set a 44 on that previous lap time, which was a second slower than Sam Smith's sector time on the previous lap. So Sam Smith's net loss time only about a second and a half.
Sam Smith could probably afford to go on the old hairpin every lap for the rest of the race and he'd still win it.
Yeah. He just loves driving quickly. You know, if he binned it right now and we were to talk to him after the race and he said, "Oh, Sam, you must be gutted," he'd be like, "Ah, yeah, you know, that's the way it is. It's fun though." But it's certainly the fans watching at home who are hoping for him to get his 8th Apex Rear Wing victory would certainly be hoping that he just brings it home from this point onwards. Nearly 5.5 minutes to go now.
Yeah, he just loves chucking a car around a track, and the added bonus is he wins pretty often. And when he doesn't win, he's normally sitting on the podium pretty well. He was on the podium incredibly consistently last season, from what I remember. And so far this race, this season, he's got 2 podiums from 2 races, with a second in Brno and a third at Sebring. So in terms of points, Sam Smith is a serious championship contender already.
Goofball Antics has gone around for another lap, so he's not coming to the pits once again. This is very surprising to me that he has managed to make it last this long. I get the feeling there's going to be a very last gasp pit stop from this BMW 320.
At this point, I think there's 3 laps to go, with 4 minutes 40 plus 1 lap, with lap times around 1 minute 55, 1 minute 56 for the leader. It's going to be about 3 laps. Including this one to go. So I think at this point, Goofball's just going to go for a no-stopper. He's trundling around quite a lot, though. He's lost 4 seconds to Berto since the last time I checked, a lap and a half ago. So I'd say his tyres have given up the ghost. He's running on fumes, and he's just trying to make it back to the finish line as quickly as he can. Although the next car behind him is disused by a gap of 30 seconds. So he's got plenty of time to play with.
Yeah, 30 seconds. That'll be touch and go with when it comes to pit stops so far, but I believe that's basically the, in terms of the top 5, the only position that's in dispute. Behind them, though, Resist is coming under a bit of pressure from Brendan Foley, about 2 seconds behind, and Foley on a bit of a recovery effort after having a few mistakes earlier on in the race.
Still improved very well from his qualifying, of course, and that he didn't qualify, and he's currently 7 places up from 7th. Same can't be said about a lot of the other drivers. Madbird is down 2 places. Roadhog's down 2 places. Xeris, Disamaj, Goofball have all lost a place from where they started. But that's mostly due to Berto, who qualified 5th due to the mistake he made in that lap and charged all the way back up again to 2nd. So it was a showing that we sort of expected from Berto. The only anomaly, I think, was the fact that he wasn't able to qualify as well as we thought. As we look in the pit lane now, we see Rhodey and Bang have both retired from the race. So Tyrrell will be the last point finisher of this race, which is always a shame. But it's part of the nature of racing. They may have had some technical issues. They may have just been too damaged to continue on. They may have just decided to pack it in. But 12 cars is still a very good showing for Apex Rear Wing.
Yeah, so it's a high number of finishes, assuming that the 12 who are running right now are still running towards the end of the race. Well, having said that, the 12 that are running now will all get points because they will have completed the 75% of the race required in order to get classified. Sam Smith now with 22-second advantage is just coming across Madbird to put him 1 lap down through the middle sector at the moment, and just looking at where he is on the racetrack, if he doesn't cross the start-finish line with a minute 50 or more remaining, which it looks like is going to be the case, then there'll be just 2 laps remaining in this race. And because by the time he comes across the next time, he should get the white flag. Now, I'm just casting my attention over to Heath Dixon's stream, who thankfully, from our point of view, is streaming his race. He's got 13 litres of fuel right now, and he is he's using about 4 litres a lap. He's actually only used about 3.5 on the previous lap, so he may well just have enough to get that thing across the line where he is right now. He's got a huge advantage, so he can fuel save to the extreme and potentially bring this home for a much, much unexpected podium.
Mind you, those tyres will be screaming out in pain. So he's got to be careful not to stress them too much, or he'll be around at the next possible opportunity. He's going through turn 1 now, and he's going as slowly as he possibly can while still maintaining a relative amount of speed through these corners. And I don't blame him at all. Those tyres are completely shot. He's got a gap of... He's made some time up on Birdo. I wonder if Birdo's made an error there, actually. Yeah, I'd say he has, because the gap to the front now is now 30 seconds between Sam Smith and Birdo. So I'd say the second place Pink Big Porsche has run off the track somewhere and lost a little bit of time. Disused is still 28 seconds behind Goofball Antics, though, third. So I'd say this third position of Goofballs is pretty much locked away. Well done to him.
Assuming he can get it to the end.
I'd say based on the petrol figures you've given me, I'd say he'd be able to make it to the end. There's 20 seconds to go in this race, so it will be 1 lap to go once Sam Smith crosses the line. And it will be a 29-lap race, which means Goofball will just have to complete just over a lap and a half. And with the figures you've given me, I'd say he can do it pretty well, as long as those tyres hold out.
So race leader Sam Smith coming up to the Tower Bend right now, and the timer is just about to hit 0. So you're absolutely correct. We're going to have 29 laps in this race, currently on lap 28 with 27 completed. So Goofball Antics...
Oh, he's almost spun. Oh, he's got a lot of time.
I was looking at the wrong part.
Every time I see a lead car make a mistake, I always get antsy, but I just keep forgetting he's 32 seconds ahead. So I'd say Birdo's even made another error somewhere. But Sam Smith is pretty much on his victory lap now.
Oof. Yeah, it was
just gotta bring it home.
It was a good save there from Sam Smith. That was Birdo I was looking at before when I erroneously said that he was coming up to the Tower Bend. It's Sam Smith that we're on board with for the final lap as he comes through the first sector. Where is Goofball Antics? He's coming down the Allman Straight as it stands right now. He has 8.5 litres worth of fuel remaining, so that's ample fuel to get him across the line, so there's no questions about him. What happened to Disamaj? His pace...
Sorry, Birdo's made an error. He's down to third. Goofball second.
What on earth? What on earth is going on there? So, does Birdo have a problem? Is he fuel saving? Is Goofball Antics going to drive away from him? Goofball Antics, we think his tyres are going to be absolutely shot. Yeah, looking at the replay, Birdo slowed coming into turn 1.
Yeah, Birdo's revving extremely low. He's not even close to red line. He's got a green light up on his dash. I'm not sure if that means anything. He may be very close to out of fuel, so I think he's fuel saving to the maximum.
Yeah.
But Goofball Antics is going to finish second at this rate, and he's going all the way to the red line, getting the most out of this car that he can, and he's going to finish second without having pitted.
Well, I feel very good about the answered questions that we now have. That probably says... it says to me why Birdo's pit stop was so much quicker than Sam Smith. Sam Smith's probably fueled enough to get back to the state border as he comes down the Allman Straight. That's why his pit stop was so much longer than Birdo's. Birdo's going to cough across the line, assuming he can get there.
Mind you, Sam Smith is also conserving fuel a little bit. It seems he's revving it pretty low, but it doesn't matter at this stage. He's got one corner to traverse now. He's just done it. He's on the final straight now. Sam Smith is going to come across the line to win race 3 of Season 8 of Apex Rear Wing with a race time of 57 minutes, 24 seconds, having completed 29 laps with Goofball Antics. About 20... Oh, it would have been about 30 seconds behind, I'd say. So Sam Smith has won this race. Well done to him. Goofball Antics, the most unlikely of second place getters on such a power-heavy circuit, has finished second in a BMW 320 without stopping once. Phenomenal effort from Goofball Antics. Well done.
Unbelievable effort. He's well on his way to putting in his charge for the championship in that BMW 320 against all of the odds. Berto comes across the line. He saved enough fuel to finish this race in third place. Decimaz just coming through Sunset Bend right now. Would you believe it? We've had 3 different winners in the first 3 races in this championship, and we have a tie at the top of the championship with Goofball Antics and Sam Smith, both with a first, second, and third. Absolutely nothing splitting them except maybe perhaps the pole position from Sam Smith today and the fastest lap in Belle Isle.
But Brenton Foley is currently challenging Xeris for 5th position. This is a very close battle as they go into the last bend. Brenton Foley, they're side by side. Xeris is sitting around the outside. He could very well make it stick the whole way around because he's got that grip. He's got the lighter car. But I think Brenton Foley's going to power away, and he's just going to get 5th position ahead of Xeris. So Brenton Foley crosses the line in 5th with a last lap pass on Xeris. Great job by them. Resist will cross the line in 7th, having made a really good show earlier on in the race, but has only gained 1 position from where he started. Madbird finishes in 8th ahead of Roadhog in 9th, all these guys being a lap down and having already crossed the line. Nether finishes the race in 10th position, with Pablo in 11th and Tyrrell bringing up the rear in 12th position. I don't think I saw Goofball Antics finishing second anywhere near my predictions, Stairs.
No, that was not in the script at all, but Goofball Antics certainly thought so, thought otherwise, and he managed to make that work somehow, and as a result, Matty, we have a tie at the top of the championship.
We absolutely do. 61 points apiece for Goofball Antics and Sam Smith, having finished 1st, 2nd, and 3rd once each. So both very round results at the top of the podium there. Madbird is currently, the championship standings haven't updated yet, but I would say Berto having finished 1st in first race. And the race results are a little bit erroneous yet. The spreadsheet is not yet updated, so I can't give you accurate points so far. But yes, 61 points for Goofball and for Sam Smith in 2 very different cars. Who would have seen that coming?
Yes, very much a surprise, that one. We're going to have a quick chat to our podium sitters for this race. Turning our attention first, of course, to our race winner, Sam Smith. It's another win for the Black Schuppen Rennen team, and this time Sam Smith with the pole position and the fastest lap and the race win, but that certainly doesn't tell the entire story, does it, Sam?
Oh, I think it does. The track was suited perfectly for this car, so we can't complain, really. This track we should have won.
Fair enough. Humble words from yourself, but of course you still had 3 other Porsche 935 turbos to beat, so what tipped the scales in your favour?
Berto set up as usual. We did a fair bit of practice, and I actually practiced this time a lot more than I have the last 2 races, so I think I only spun twice, so better than hitting walls.
There you
How
go.
much petrol did you take on that pit stop that you took? Because it seemed like you were pretty safe and home by the time you reached the end, whereas a few of the guys were coughing over the line, including Berto himself.
Yeah, I'm not precise, so I pretty much filled it. I think I put about 80 litres in. So I still had like 15 or 20 left.
Yeah, speaking of fuel, of course, thank you very much for joining me, and congratulations again on that win. But speaking of fuel, let's go to Goofball Antics now, who are able to complete that race with about 4 litres left in the tank from what I was able to gauge from your stream, without stopping at all. So, phenomenal effort. How did you do it? Oh, you did stop, did you?
I made a stop, yeah.
Oh, we must have missed that.
I can't remember what lap it was, but I definitely stopped.
We completely missed that.
You didn't wonder why I suddenly dropped down
quick.
to like 7th or something?
Your pit stop was so quick that we barely noticed it.
It was 9 seconds. Oh, it was 9 seconds stop time. Yeah.
We were riding it up as one of the most phenomenal efforts that we've seen so far, but
Still
granted that you got a 2nd position in a BMW 320 on such a power circuit, it's still a fantastic drive.
Thank you. Again, just trying to keep it clean and It's amazing what you can achieve when, people around you are making mistakes here, there, and everywhere.
Would you say the track's pretty well suited to the BMW 320s? Obviously not the straights,
Not at
which
all,
is definitely
no.
suited to the 935s, but there's a lot of steady-state long corners where I've been able to see yourself and Zeros passing guys around the outside, so that's played into hands a little bit, hasn't it?
Oh, it has, absolutely, yeah. But during practice, I didn't think this car was going to be anywhere. I was relying on people to make mistakes. Well, I thought I'd be relying on people to make mistakes to make positions. But yeah, it just sort of all came together on the night.
Well, yeah, thankfully there weren't as many errors this time around, given there was a bit of runoff towards the edges of the track. So not as many walls to steer towards, but nevertheless, second place for you, Goofball Antics. Well done. Thank you very much for joining me again. And
Thank you.
Birdo, crossing the line in third position, but only just. You look like you ran out of petrol at the end there. Is that what happened?
Yeah. Yep. Short fueled by probably 5-7 litres. Just got the calculations a little bit wrong, and yeah, with about 20 minutes to go, I knew we might be in a bit of trouble.
I saw you spun on the exit of the pit lane when you did make your stop as well, and I think a few of the guys got tripped up like that. It's just because it's such a bumpy part of the track, isn't it? And that would have cost you a little bit of time as well.
Yeah, the balance, putting new rears on, changed the balance a little bit. I think a couple of other guys found exactly the same thing, that cold rears coming out of pit lane just wasn't pretty.
Absolutely. Stairs, is there anything else you wanted to add to the questionnaire?
No, I think we've covered that all, but thank you very much indeed for the thoughts of our podium sitters. Congratulations, of course, to Sam Smith, Goofball Antics, and Birdo for being our podium sitters in race 3. We're all out of time. We'll see you in 7 days for round 4 in Barbagallo, and that proves to be a completely different kettle of fish to tonight. We'll see you then. Bye for now.